Under this plan, American troops were instructed to concentrate their efforts solely in central Luzon. And I'm actually going to take the time right now to put up a different picture. One sec. Something that actually shows. Okay, so this is the unit placement that will happen in 1941. Kind of gives you an idea, I guess. But basically, War Plan Orange, the American troops were instructed to concentrate their efforts solely in the central part of Luzon. So if you're looking here at this map, this is the big chunk of the big northern island that makes up the Philippines. The initial protective force was, going to be established with the main objective of thwarting enemy landings. Should this initial defense fail, the troops would transition back and engage in delaying actions while withdrawing to the Bataan Peninsula. So if you're looking over
Oh,
here, it's
yeah,
kind
I
of
would just
shown to the.
say it's probably the best thing because you don't want an invading amphibious army to gain a foothold.
Yeah,
That's pretty much like what by Rommel, for example, with D-Day was pretty adamant of putting the armor closer to the coast.
exactly. Importantly, this withdrawal strategy was to take place without compromising the primary mission of defending Manila Bay. The Philippine Army was permitted to be utilized for the defense of Manila Bay, but this was understood that not all troops would be allocated to defend the entire archipelago. So, for people who don't know the geography, the Philippines is a bunch of islands, like Panay, Mindoro, Mindanao, and such. And obviously, they wanted to concentrate the American and Filipino forces, put them in Luzon, try to see if they could defend the beaches. Most likely, this will not be possible. And then they were going to find a place to basically make their own battle thermopylae, we'll call it. Where can we bottleneck so that we can fight for the longest period of time and keep the Japanese pinned down? Because the whole idea is the United States is going to somehow make a rescue force, which will take months, if not an entire year, to come over and help them. So they have to defend as long as possible. This strategic withdrawal would necessitate relocating sufficient war supplies to support a force of about 43,000 men for the duration of what they thought would be 6 months. That was their estimation for how long they could survive in Bataan. So I want to kind of get in depth about this. If you're looking at this map, basically the crux of this whole plan is, we're going to get invaded by the Japanese. We are going to fight as close to the beaches as possible and delay them as long as possible so that all the supplies, which probably is already in Bataan, can be moved if anything's left, so that we have everything we need to be in this bottleneck, and then we will try to last as long as possible. What you would not want to do, which is what Mark MacArthur will be doing, is place all the war materials and these units on all of the different islands of the archipelago and try to basically make your entire defensive strategy fight them at the beaches, where you will put the war materials far away from Bataan, making it very difficult when doing delayed fighting. Let's say they get the beaches to get all this to Bataan. So this is a bit foreshadowing. Excuse me. Now, War Plan Orange was overshadowed by, I will call it, the plans that just replaced the color coded plans, which are known as the Rainbow Plans, specifically Rainbow Plan 5. This emerged after Japan signed the Tripartite Pact in September 1940. Now, despite the fact that War Plan Orange was put aside for Rainbow Plan 5, about 90% of what War Plan Orange is still the ongoing plan. Rainbow Plan 5 assumed that the United States was allied with Britain and France, and they would be mostly fighting in Europe, perhaps Africa, and they would be adhering to a Europe First strategy. This revised strategic framework stipulated that the United States would adopt a defensive posture against Japan until Germany and Italy would be defeated. This is exactly what happened in World War II. Now, by this time, War Plan Orange 3, which was the last implementation of it, was also deemed a very defensive strategy. So, Rainbow Plan 5, War Plan Orange 3, they're both actually in use. You can think of it this way: War Plan Orange 3 is basically just under Rainbow Plan 5. But MacArthur believed this to be unacceptable. He thought it was far too defeatist, this defensive idea, and he thought that the Philippines should not be lost to an enemy, that they should be, defended at all
I
costs.
It kind of reminds me a lot about these early World War One commanders
Yeah.
in terms of their attitude that defensive postures are for cowards and losers.
Yes.
Right? It's that offensive momentum and spirit that is supposed, like, that aggression that's supposed to win the day.
Yes. Now,
Just, I don't know, maybe it could just be some byproduct of he did serve in World War One, so that was also there.
he is a
Even
product
General,
of this. Yes.
even General Pershing, when the U.S. forces had built up by 1918, he was kind of like pissed off with what he felt was like the defeatist attitudes of like Britain and France. But well, those guys had learned it the really hard way.
Those guys actually knew what was going on, whereas Pershing just comes in guns a blazing. The Americans in World War One, not realizing, oh yeah, no, it doesn't work like this. This isn't just a battle on the southern
Machine
border with
guns are
Mexico.
pretty. Machine guns are really a thing,
Yeah.
and actually, funny thing, Douglas Haig, Commander in Chief of Britain, he actually felt machine guns were absolutely useless weapons of war.
Oh yeah. Famously, yeah. But so Douglas MacArthur has been around forever. War Plan Orange goes back to the Russo-Japanese War. So Theodore Roosevelt was actually not officially the guy who opened this up, but he started the planning that became War Plan Orange. And I think the official War Plan Orange, the first one, came about in 1908, if I'm not mistaken. But this has been around forever. Douglas MacArthur has been part of the planning process. So it's not like he's not aware of how this works, what's the purpose, what's the overall strategic value of all this. So this is going to come to a surprise to everybody that kind of at the last hour before World War II, he's saying, you know what, War Plan Orange 3 is too defeatist. It's excessively defensive. I don't like it. He wanted a more aggressive approach to counter an adversary attempting to conquer the Philippines. Obviously, Japan. It's not like Thailand's going to do it, for example. MacArthur firmly rejected Rainbow Plan 5 on the grounds that it tactically conceded the loss of the Philippines, which it did. The whole point of Rainbow Plan 5 was, delay the Japanese as much as you can, but we're definitely going to lose the Philippines. We're not going to be able to do anything about it. Now, I want to say this to give MacArthur a little credit. MacArthur, in his head and in most of the American planners' heads, didn't predict Pearl Harbor. They thought that the Pacific Fleet would be probably not capable of facing the Japanese fleet if they're doing a two-front war initially, but after a few months, there's a few aircraft carriers that would be coming in as they were already being commissioned. They would probably be able to form quite a decent force and have a decisive naval battle, they thought, around the Philippines. And after that was done, they would liberate the Philippines. So, in their heads,
Very
it
similar
was
to
feasible.
or
Yeah,
very similar to what Admiral Yamamoto wanted on the waters.
exactly. The Americans thought that this would happen probably sometime in 1942. They thought that it was very feasible. MacArthur, amongst many others, did not suspect Japan would attack at the time they did. It has to do with weather and harvesting and all that. It's funny to say. So they kind of misjudged the war came a little too early for them. But anyways, given the American Pacific Fleet wasn't destroyed the way it was feasible maybe. But I desist. Almost immediately, as he was being recalled back to active service, he just went to war with War Plan Orange 3, and he kept demanding changes. He wanted to be more aggressive. In 1941, July, Major General Henry Arnold, Hap Arnold, proposed bolstering the capabilities of the Philippine Army Air Corps by sending significant reinforcements, including 4 heavy bombardment groups and 2 pursuit squadrons. By the time hostilities commenced, a total of 107 P-40 Tomahawk fighters and 35 B-17 bombers were going to be stationed in the Philippines, giving MacArthur a crucial amount of air power and advantage for the impending conflict. Now, I have to mention it here because I don't think I put it in my notes. MacArthur made a dramatic change to Rainbow Plan 5. He said, if you gave me heavy bombers, as we see here with the B-17s, my idea, if Japan does declare war on us, is I will preemptively attack significant airfields that Japan has that can threaten the Philippines. This is on Formosa, modern day Taiwan. The whole idea was, as soon as I know that we're at war, I'm going to go bomb the hell out of their airfields, knock out their air capability, thus really reducing what they can do to the Philippines. Not a bad plan.
I mean, makes sense to me, and I think that's fair.
Yeah. Everybody, just before World War II, had very fascinating ideas about how strong air power would be, especially heavy bombers. They kind of saw them as wonder weapons in a lot of ways. So there was this belief that it would be more than enough to knock out the air power. And MacArthur was going to have a lot of submarines under Admiral Thomas Hart. He believed that the submarines would just destroy any invading force while they were amphibiously assaulting the Philippines because they would be very vulnerable. He was not aware, of course, of the impending problem with American torpedoes. They simply didn't work. No one really knew this until the war happened. So it was going to be a rude awakening. So MacArthur had some good ideas, but yeah, he quasi got the green thumb, the green light, green thumb. He got a green light on these ideas, and at the very last minute, they kind of altered Rainbow Plan 5, and they said, "Okay, MacArthur, your orders are: if we go to war, preemptively attack Formosa, like you said, as fast as you can, hit them as hard as you can, and then initiate War Plan Orange 3, which, as I explained, get all of your materials to Bataan and hold out for as long as possible to see if we can liberate the Philippines. But pretty much everyone realized that's not going to happen. So it's going to be a losing battle, but you need to prolong them as much as possible because of everything else that's going on. MacArthur's aware of these orders. These are his standing orders. So by October the 1st, 1941, Douglas MacArthur successfully persuades the War Department to approve of his innovative concepts. And he starts reporting to Washington things like that he's currently training the Filipinos, and he believes he'll have about 200,000 armed personnel organized into 11 divisions, complete with an Air Force, Corps, Army units, all prepared for combat. He asserts that the B-17s that he wants are going to change the entire picture of the United States posture in the Asia Pacific, dramatically enhancing the Philippines' defensive capabilities. Oh, excuse me. Now, all of his optimistic stuff that he's sending gets some people in Washington to say, "Okay, maybe he's onto something. We'll go with this." It's pretty risky though. Now his vision is basically a large Filipino force leveraged by his American forces on the ground. The U.S. Navy submarines are going to basically neutralize the Japanese transport vessels